staggering $11 billion. Louis Mendy, GRTS.
Barely an hour after the National Assembly passed the 2013 Domestic Violence Bill on Tuesday, the Vice President and Minister for Women's Affairs, Her Excellency Dr. Aissatou Saidi, presented the 2013 Sexual Offences Bill before lawmakers. GRTS's Babukar Kamara was at the Legislative Chamber and he has more on that development.
Here are criminal offences, and Sharia courts do not have jurisdiction on the criminal matters.
An increase in advocacy propagated by constant commitment and desire is at its knee, following a robust consultation process leading to an outcome presented on a bill by the Vice President before deputies.
Be aware, anything that deals with women is sensitive. Anything that deals with women is seen as controversial. Anything that deals with women is seen as of concern, in other words, gender issues. I'm aware. We are aware as a government. This is not the first time we brought bills here, even during the First Republic. If all of us remember, one of the bills was put under the carpet, and it just died a natural death from the very First Republic I'm talking about. So we are aware. And that is why, Honorable Speaker, when we bring bills, we do consultations. Because laws are meant to be implementable.
Yeah, that can happen in a marriage if it is not defined. If my wife takes me to court and he says I'm making that, where do you rely? To say that it's not, though they are married, it's not part of the and you said it's criminal. Yeah.
Factoring the very social interdifferences that dissected culture and tradition before learning the art of civilization, exist current-day realities that inspired a change in process and approach while attracting views of those taxed by the electorate.
Honorable Speaker, the United Nations General Assembly in 1993 adopted the definition of violence against women as, I quote, any act that results or likely to result in physical, sexual, or psychological harm or suffering to women.
Before the advent of Islam, we know what used to happen. In the Arab world, any female child that was born was buried to death because they fear that in the long run, those children will just bear them sins.
They made the thing very easy for us. Hence, High Excellency, the Vice President said, they have consulted the Supreme Islamic Council, the Christian Council. These are our representatives in Islam. But these are the bridge between us and our religion. Hence, they are satisfied with this document. I think for us, it has been very easy.
The 2013 Sexual Offences Bill, passed having undergone scrutiny of the House, aims to protect, empower and maintain a just society, highly influenced by interlinkages of society, debited with moral bankrupt. Babukar Kamara, GRTS.
The outgoing WHO country representative today called on the Vice President and Minister for Women's Affairs, Dr. Thomas Sukwa, was at State House to bid farewell to the Gambia government at the end of his tenure of duty in the country. Let's take a listen.
The Vice President has been able to give me this opportunity. And in our discussions, really, I highlighted the achievements that we have made in the health sector over the 5 years and 5 months that I've been head of WHO in this beautiful country of the Gambia. I think top on the list is that we have now got in the sector a national health policy. You might be aware that in the last decade or so, we have been operating with a draft policy, but now we have in place a national health policy that was adopted last year by Cabinet to give us a vision in terms of the health development of this country. Secondly, also, I think during my tenure, we have been able to sustain high immunization coverage in terms of vaccinations that are given to children, particularly those aged 1 to 5 years. I think the Gambia in the sub-region has got the best EPI program, as we call it, because all the antigens now, the coverages are over 90%. And more specifically also, in the 5 years that I've been here, we have introduced 3 more vaccines in the EPI, namely the vaccine that prevents against pneumonia, and the vaccine that prevents against diarrhea, and also we have added a second dose of measles vaccine.
Court has convicted Dr. Njoguba, Lamin Jabate, and Pahari Jame of 2 counts of conspiracy and abuse of office, whilst acquitting them of giving false information to a public officer. Justice Kerr also sentenced the trio to 2 years in prison, each on the 2 charges, with the sentences running concurrently. Mamadou Jallo tells us more.
Formerly Secretary General, Head of Civil Service, and Minister for Presidential Affairs, Lamin Jabate, the former Attorney General, Minister of Justice, and Pahari Jame, the former Solicitor General and Legal Secretary, was this afternoon sealed at the Banjul High Court. 3 men were charged with 3 counts of conspiracy to carry out a lawful purpose by unlawful means, giving false information to a public officer, and abuse of office. Lamin Jabate, Pahari Jame, and Dr. Njogu Ba, earlier this year, conspired among themselves to remove Justice Joseph Wowo of the Gambia Court of Appeal by unlawful means by orchestrating his arrest, detention, and mock trial. The 3 men, with intent to cause the termination of the service of Justice Wowo, fed John Belford, the Judicial Secretary, and the Judicial Service Commission that the President had directed the appointment of Justice Wowo, which information they knew to be false. They were further accused of abusing their authority by causing his arrest, detention, and termination of services. The 3 ex-officials denied all the charges. After a 4-month trial, Justice Emmanuel Nkea passed judgment at a courtroom filled with family members and friends of the accused. Justice Nkea began by summarizing the facts of the case as presented by the prosecution and defense. He concluded that the prosecution has proven its case beyond any reasonable doubt in counts 1 and 3, but failed to do so in count 2. He therefore found them guilty on counts 1 and 3 and acquitted them on count 2. Before passing his sentence, the counsel for the convicts took turns to plead for mercy. Idrissa Jah, counsel for Pahari Jame, and Lamin Boj, counsel for Njogu Ba, urged the court to temper justice with mercy. They pleaded that the convicts have rendered illustrious services to our country, were first-time offenders, and had families to take care of. They urged the court to admonish and release the convicts, but not to hand custodial sentences, as they would have adverse effects on them. The trial judge listened carefully to the pleas for mercy and later stood down the court and retired into his office. After a 30-minute wait, a calm and composed Justice Nkea returned to pass his sentence. He said that he has carefully listened to the pleas of mercy and would take such into consideration when passing his sentence, as the 3 convicts are first-time offenders. He however said that they are also senior civil servants and as such are expected to set an example to society. He therefore sentenced each of the convicts to 2 years in prison on the 2 counts, with the sentences set to run concurrently. This announcement set shockwaves throughout the silent courtroom as family members murmured in disbelief and people started crying. The 3 men remained composed, perhaps absorbing the reality of spending 2 years in prison. For Njogu Ba and Pahari Jame, it is the end of a chapter, but Lamin Jabate faces multiple other charges at another court. Mamadou Jallo, Grts.
Well, still on the home front, an electronic signboard designed to reinforce the country's stance against child sexual abuse and exploitation in the tourism industry has been inaugurated by the Gambia Tourism Board and partners like UNICEF. Winifred Nicole Hadibet has more on the latest move by tourism officials in their bid to tighten the news on child sexual abuse and exploitation in this report.
Child sexual abuse and exploitation is one of the most challenging problems being tackled. One of the tools the Tourism Ministry and stakeholders are henceforth using is their routine campaign to curb the practice, is this newly inaugurated electronic signboard. Strategically fixed at the Banjul International Airport, the inscription educates and reminds people, particularly tourists flying into the country, about issues relating to child sexual abuse and exploitation. The Director General of the Gambia Tourism Board said the daring initiative was driven by the fact that children are the future and therefore need protection.
Pedophilia is real.